Globalisation has a massive effect on all businesses looking to survive at a global level. We've looked at a company, Dixon Ticonderoga, an American pencil distributor, and we're going to analyse whether or not the business was a victim of globalisation or just poor managerial decisions. We'd also like to ask you as individuals and potential managers, would you want to be a part of globalisation?
Founded by Joseph Dixon in 1827, Joseph Dixon Crucible Company, now is known as Dixon Ticonderoga, is one of the oldest American corporations and has become one of the American icon. Basically, Dixon is a top US maker of wood-cased graphic pencils. The company also makes pencil grips, markers, art materials, a line of school supplies, general office supplies, and so on. They experienced a brilliant success in 1980s when the market share of Dixon with the other big four together accounted for 90% of the total US market. However, Dixon also struggled in 1990s due to the more intensified competition triggered by globalization, and they need to adapt to the changing environment. Otherwise, they will be pushed out of the market.
We're now going to analyse Dixon Ticonderoga by looking at their SWOT. SWOT stands for Strengths, Weaknesses, Opportunities and Threats. Firstly, we should look at Dixon's before it was affected by globalisation. As Lee has mentioned, it was a successful company making the most of mass production, producing 86,000 pencils a day. The American government was helping its cause by increasing tariffs on imported goods, encouraging the public to buy American products. In terms of opportunities, the US had a growing population, meaning potential new customers as demand increased. Due to mass marketing, the majority of the American population could hear about a company's product. However, this was a period of prosperity for the majority of American companies, and Dixon Ticonderoga were not the only successful company. Germany and Japan were also beginning to produce cheaper pencils.
Dixon Ticonderoga had struggled during the 1990s, and to find out why, we decided to look at its organizational environment. Dixon's environment consists of general, task and internal environment, as you can see on the diagram. However, we will concentrate on the general environment, as it is more susceptible to the influence of globalization. Considering the legal political element of Dixon's general environment, creation of North American Free Trade Agreement enforced globalization, which allowed in turn for Chinese exporters to enter the US market, stressing the situation even further. Talking about globalization, it is the technology that made it possible in the first place. Air and sea transport in the 1990s was as quick, cheap and effective as never before. Space-based telecommunications and the internet made global coordination of production possible. Socio-cultural aspects include people's norms, values and customs. The US firm competing with Chinese exports enforced a clash of two different value systems. Also, Chinese population was growing rapidly at a time, leading us to the next component of general environment, which is economical. Growing and really cheap labor force, as well as the advantage of exchange rates, gave Chinese firms a competitive advantage over the US manufacturers, like Dixon's. And there is also a natural aspect of general environment. The US manufacturers faced higher pressure of environmental awareness, increasing their raw material costs.
Due to globalisation, Dixon received increased competition from foreign multinational companies, particularly the Chinese importers of pencils. In 1994, the foreign importers of pencils accounted for 16% of the total US market share of pencils. In 1999, even after the US pencil industry had lobbied for protection, it accounted for 50% of the pencil market. Due to the higher perceived quality and lower cost of the Chinese pencils, there was a shift in customer expectation. In other words, customers expected higher quality pencils at a lower cost. It's clear that Dixon needed a new strategy in order to combat these changes to the economy, and it's crucial that the management of these changes was carried out effectively. It would have been important that they considered all implementations of these changes, as they would have been fairly decisive in their future. They could not afford to stand still, as the article notes, and therefore some change was essential. Linstead approaches on this topic by saying all decision-making, organisational, investigated, should be investigated in terms of the subjective, non-rational, social, historical influences that are affecting it. An example of this is, should Dixon invest directly in another country rather than its own, and therefore cut jobs in the US? This could result in disgruntled US citizens that could be potential customers. Other considerations may be environmental considerations, such as environmental ones. Sorry, I just said that. Inequalities in lower cost environments and the public's awareness of this. Total quality management describes how businesses must analyse all aspects of their company in order to focus on the customer. Hannigan mentions this when he states that the significance of an activity is not measured by some hierarchy of needs, it's measured by what someone's prepared to pay for it. Hannigan's customer strategy highlights 3 goals of a business to meet this aforementioned customer expectation changes. These are to meet customer needs at maximum satisfaction with competitive advantages.
Just like any other company, Dixon's was massively affected by globalisation, because as consumer demand grows, so too does competition. The problem was that countries such as China were able to produce more products a lot faster and a lot cheaper. However, Dixon's wasn't affected too badly to begin with because the economy was growing so rapidly. This period gave Dixon's a chance to implement necessary changes that they believed would generate more profit and allow the business to grow from a multinational to a global company. The general theme of the managerial decisions made was to cut cost. They moved production from the States to Mexico, taking advantage of foreign production policies. Also, materials were changed and production lines were altered. Although money was saved by this, the new products were so low in quality they were actually taken back off the production lines. The company also tried to expand and ventured into the European market. These only worked short term, however, as Dixon Ticonderoga ended up merging with the Fila Fabrica SPA company in 2004. This merge was clearly a product of poor managerial decisions. The managing director clearly thought that cutting costs was the key to surviving in the current business climate. Although it helps, it can have negative effects. Firstly, the move to Mexico would have created job cuts in the US. As products were mainly sold in the United States, this would have lost potential customers looking to support a more local company. Also, the change in materials dramatically reduced quality, and customers are looking for value for money rather than just cheap. Also, it is likely that these poor quality products would have given the business a bad reputation, reducing the chance of new customers and losing the old ones.
Now let's see how globalisation has affected the company's SWOT. This assessment is taken between the years 2000 and 2010. Dixon Ticonderoga's main strength is that it's producing cheap pencils, and the tariffs on imported goods were still high. On the other hand, Dixon Ticonderoga now had some noticeable weaknesses. It wasn't using all American suppliers, tarnishing its reputation as it could be seen as unpatriotic. The results were fluctuating and they were not producing as much profit as they were used to. Despite this, there was still hope. They could find cheaper places to manufacture their pencils, such as countries with a lower minimum wage. On the other hand, Chinese companies were still producing cheaper pencils. This is shown by the foreign manufacturers' share of the pencil market rising from 16% to 50%.
Dixon's has not been the only large US company to have faced similar problems. The company Sanford, a division of Newell Rubbermaid, is the world's largest manufacturer of writing products. They make well-known pencils such as Sharpies and Barreau. However, in 2009, they were the last of the large American-based manufacturers to relocate some of their facilities to Mexico from America. The knock-on effect of this was the loss of 355 jobs at the Lewisburg-based factory. It illustrates how global forces are still causing large and dominating firms to act competitively and work in the best interests of that organisation. Interestingly, this was a move that Dixon had previously made in the mid-1990s and again in 2005 with one of its Missouri pencil plants, with the loss of 160 jobs. Dixon is more famously known for its yellow No. 2 pencil used frequently in America. The move to Mexico is strategic and a clever opportunity for both the firms. They won't be restricted by the laws to such an extent that they are in America. It is in their interest to protect themselves domestically while seeking to spread themselves on the global market. Following suit from one another again, both Dixon and Sanford were acquired by larger and more diverse firms. Still with their well-established names, they became a branch of these companies. Sanford was acquired by Newell Rubbermaid in 1992, and Dixon, over a decade later, in 2004, became a branch of Fila Fabrica. It illustrates their inability to sustain themselves, and this resulted in them merging. The move of both these companies can be seen as very strategic in the sense that they have the support of other brands within that company and can stretch their influence from a wider base. Globalization is a rapidly evolving nature of business, and both these companies had to be more efficient to compete or face a lower share of the market.
Having seen the effects of globalisation on one particular company, it's clear that globalisation can be both positive and negative. So the question remains, as individuals or potential managers, do you want to be a part of globalisation? Are there any questions?